Brian, welcome back to Real America. Thanks so much for giving us your time. I know it has been a busy couple of days there. I want to thank you and other members on the Republican side, because I don't see too many Democrats pushing for these hearings, trying to get to the bottom of what happened on that fateful day at the airport in Afghanistan in August, when Joe Biden, as he has said time and time again, the buck stops with me, ordered troops out. And we lost 13 brave souls. We left behind billions, in equipment, cash that we had seized, everything. And so I'm glad that you and other Republicans are taking it seriously to try and get not only the Gold Star families some resolution to what happened to their loved ones, but also so the American people can realize this should have not went down the way it did. So I just want to commend you and thank you for that, first and foremost. Let's get into the hearings. What went down today? You had the generals in the hot seat.
Yeah, listen, you had General Milley, General McKenzie, the two top dogs in charge of the withdrawal of Afghanistan, testifying together for the first time as civilians. That's a really big deal. Now they're no longer in uniform. They get to go out there, kind of say what they want. And they said what we suspected they would say, some things they'd said in interviews. Listen, we advised the administration against basically everything that they did. You can find it in all of these various classified places if you want to look for it there. For members of Congress that can go out there and view that, you can find it. You can see it written. You can do this and that. And we advised them. They did not listen. We advised them about this. They did not listen. Biggest regret, number one for both of them, is that the administration chose to not pull out the State Department, not pull out civilians, not pull out the Afghans that had worked with us before they pulled out the military. And in the end, we all know the military had to go back. And by that time, they literally said it was too late.
Wow. I mean, I don't know that the American people, because things have been so censored the last 3 years since this regime took over the White House, right, Brian? I don't know that the majority of the American people know the particulars, know that there was a different plan under the Trump administration, and that Joe Biden himself, and I don't know if it was at the advisement of these generals. I know you talked with them not only during the hearings, but then I think you spoke with them in a skiff, in a private, confidential meeting where you guys talk about the top secret stuff. But did they give you, and are you allowed to say, any inclination that they pushed back, or they said, hey, the plan was this and you're now changing it, Joe? What did they tell you when it comes to who said and who did what? Who pushed the buttons here?
Yeah, they could not have been more clear. Open source, you can go back and see it in the open source hearing, that they absolutely pushed back on what they wanted. They gave their advice, they gave their analysis, gave their recommendations. Administration ultimately said, no, we're going it our way. And we saw what happened with the administration, Biden doing it his way. And then the other thing that you saw these two generals, talking about also that the Democrats didn't want to talk about was where Joe Biden was to blame on this, where Donald Trump said, hey, listen, there's the Doha Agreement. These are what the Taliban have to fall into for the Doha Agreement, and they're not falling into it. The generals were very clear about that, so we shouldn't have been doing what we did. Democrats, they did not take the opportunity at all to look for truth or to try to get answers for those Gold Star families. All they did is say, Donald Trump did the Doha Agreement, so ominous dominus, we need to just fast forward to it's his fault and forget anything that happened in between.
Oh, okay, so we went and played the blame game again on Donald Trump for something when he wasn't even in the damn White House. Joe makes the final calls, instructs the generals what to do, and now, fast forward 3 years, almost 3 years later, 2.5, and we're saying it's Donald Trump's fault that the 13 soldiers got killed. Is that what we're saying now coming from this regime?
Literally, everything about this is Donald Trump's fault. Joe Biden had no control. This isn't what the generals were saying. The generals were refuting what the Biden administration said, right? This is what the Biden administration was saying.
Gotcha.
The generals are saying, listen, we advised him against this. We said they weren't living up to the Doha Agreement. We said that you need to pull out the civilians, the non-combatants, everybody, before you pull out the military. We said you needed to leave 2,500 people there to do it on this base, do it a different time. All of these things were ignored, which goes to the point that I always make about this and really anything the Biden administration does. Nothing is an emergency for them until it's a political emergency. National security objectives, not emergencies. Political emergencies, man, the red light starts going off and they put the sirens on.
Well, we should call what happened in Afghanistan Joe Biden's bloodbath at the airport. right? Because that was an actual bloodbath that he caused. And I'm glad that before the interview, I ran the clip. I guess I should keep running the clip nonstop, where he literally came out and said, the buck stops with me, right? I made the call. And now you're hearing directly from the generals. That was the fact. It was not military brass. It was Joe Biden and his regime who made the final call. I want to talk about the Gold Star families. Several were in attendance today, correct? They got to hear from these generals. Did you speak with any of them? Reaction from them after they heard what the generals said and pretty much put blame at Biden's feet?
So I saw one of my friends, Steve Nakui, before the hearing. I did not get a chance to see him after the hearing because there was another classified hearing afterwards. So I didn't get a chance to hear his reaction following it. Now,
Mr. Nakui, if folks remember, we can probably run the video. He was the gentleman who got a little vocal during the State of the Union address up in the I'll call them the cheap seats. You guys are downstairs. It should be the other way around, by the way, since we pay you guys. We should get the good seats. You guys should get the cheap seats. Just a joke.
Well, let's touch on that a minute. Let's touch on that for 1 second. Obviously, I know it's no joke what happened to Steve's family.
Yeah.
He lost his son. A second son committed suicide. That family has paid dearly for America's freedom. But one of the things, that night that he was arrested, I go down to the D.C. police station and I'm talking to the police there and I'm saying, where's everybody else? Because he got charged with quote unquote demonstrating. I thought the Capitol was the place for demonstrating, but he got charged with demonstrating. I said, where's everybody else? Where's the members of Congress that were yelling? Where's the people that stopped Joe Biden's motorcade? Where's everybody else? Well, and here's the answer, literally. Well, Congressman, there's a different standard, a different bar for members of Congress than there is for everybody else. That should never be said for the House of Representatives, our government at all, that we the people have a different standard than those that are tasked with representing we the people. But that's what they told me.
Wow. They always spew that D word down everybody's throat, decorum. If folks would look back at the archives and see how members of Congress in the House used to act 100 years ago when someone was up on that pulpit lying, they would be pounding, ramming their feet, yelling stuff at them to try and, get a rise out of them and say, you're a liar. And that was allowed. Now, y'all are supposed to sit there and be quiet as a POTUS sits and lies to the nation. And when a grieving father, oh, how dare he, speaks up and just says, remember the Marines, remember Abbey Gate, he gets arrested and fined. Now, I don't know if you saw my tweet to you, Bri, but right after that happened, I said I would pay half of the fine with you. What do we know about his arrest, the charges, and the fine?
And thank you for that. It matters to, as they say, put your money where your mouth is.
Damn right.
And have these guys back, have these families back. And this is an update as of just within the last couple of hours. They did officially get the charges dropped. But you look at these charges and you look at another veteran that I'll bring into this, and that's Stu Scheller. I don't know if you remember Lieutenant Colonel Stu Scheller. Of course I do. He's on the show all the time. Right. United States Marine Corps. Basically, Stu Scheller and Steve Nakui are the only people that have paid any price whatsoever for everything that happened with the withdrawal of Afghanistan. Those are the only two.
That's a good point. Where's the accountability for the commanders that listen to the Biden regime? Who are the idiots inside the regime that made the call? Because let's be real, we all know Joe's not making the calls. So was it his SecDef that said, hey, we're going to do this, Mr. President, and then he gave the order? Like, is somebody ever going to pay for those 13 lives? And oh, by the way, I'm almost out of time, but Brian, we didn't even bring up the $85 billion in equipment and ammunition and guns that we left for the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. And now we know that the Taliban's allowed Al-Qaeda to set up 3 or 4 training camps, a couple schools. We know that weapons have ended up over in like Ukraine, Russia, down in Iran, and Hamas maybe even had some. I mean, how the hell does that happen? Was that brought up today? Where'd the equipment go?
This was brought up, and this is something that, again, you have the administration, Donald Trump saying, his administration saying, listen, we wouldn't have left a nut, a screw, a bolt, or whatever for them. And then you have the Biden administration saying there was absolutely no other way that this could be done. And let's look at that at an even more granular level. You're telling me there's no way that you could get your hands on a rocket or a tank. Maybe you didn't get everything, but you couldn't get your hands on those helicopters, those Humvees, those this, those that. Take your pick. You couldn't get your hands on anything. They couldn't get their hands on anything because they didn't try to get anything. That's the end of it.
Is this the end of this? What will you and other Republicans be doing now to try and hold people accountable within this regime and the military brass? Final question to you, Brian.
You have a couple of things going on. There will be a report at the end of all of this House of Representatives investigation into the withdrawal from Afghanistan. You have another one going on in the Department of Defense right now, specifically on Abbey Gate and that bombing by the CENTCOM commander, General Kurilla. I knew him when he was Colonel Kurilla, served directly underneath of him when I was injured. So I do have a lot of trust in that man.
Okay. Open invitation. As this moves on, please come back on the program, update our viewers here on OAN, because every single American, left, right, independent, you name it, deserves to know the truth about that exit and why more Americans died because of a botched call because of the Biden regime. Congressman Brian Mast, as always, thank you, brother. Appreciate you so much, and thank you for your service. God bless.
Hey everyone, thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed the video, please click like and subscribe. I will be back on YouTube with more exclusive content, so stay tuned.